Howdy, partner. I'm sorry. I'm no good at pretending to be a fake cowboy. I'm not like you dipshits who dress up like this every day for no fucking reason. So this is the best we can do today. But good morning. It is Uncle Lou here. That's right. It is me, Uncle Lou, live on YouTube for you. Hey, thanks for watching. Guess what? This is the Your Season is Over video. That's right. The only Sunday afternoon college football recap video that actually matters. There's plenty of other channels, plenty of other places, honestly, where you can go. And you probably have already. To hear about how great your team looked yesterday, how great your quarterback is, whatever. Get patted on your little peanut head for whatever accomplishment it is you think you did yesterday. That's not here. we point and laugh here. We point and laugh at losers. And we got something to point and laugh at today, just like we do every single Sunday. So welcome to the Your Season is Over video, week 12 edition of the 2025 college football season. 2 more weeks left of the regular season. Then we've got conference championships Saturday, the first Saturday in December. Then you get about a week off, and then you start your meaningless, irrelevant, low-level bowl games. Then you got the first round of the playoffs, December 19th and 20th, I believe. 19th and 20th, or 20th and 21st. Anyway, there's one game on a Friday night, and then 3 games. Saturday will be our first round playoff games. Then we get round 2, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And then I believe it's on January 10th, 8th, 9th, or 10th. Depends on how the calendar falls. We get the Final Four. And then the next week, we get the national championship game. So we are winding down here. We are winding down. Some teams still standing. Some teams, not so much. Right, Texas? A lot of talk about 9-3 Texas. Should they get in? No. But don't worry, they're not going 9-3. They'll lose to Texas A&M. Anyway, let's get to it. You know what we're gonna do? We've got the helmet specials. We'll go through those first. Laugh at the losers first. I've got another long list of games to go through where I just want to make a couple of brief comments about another long list of games. In some cases, teams that won. In some cases, teams that lost. And then we've got the regular rundown to wrap the video up. I'll give you my updated Heisman list as of today. I'll tell you the best teams I saw play this weekend. I'll give you the Juice Poot special. That's right, the Josh Pate special. Who is Josh Pate going to cuddle tonight on his show? Which loser needs to be told that they still matter? I'll tell you. I'll tell you. We've got the paper plate special. It's a pretty obvious one today, isn't it? The paper plate special. I think it is pretty obvious. What else do we have? Analytics clown. Analytics clown of the week this week is a coach that I think should get fired. I think the school should move on from this guy. We'll talk about it anyway. He did something extremely stupid this past weekend. I'm assuming because the analytics said so. But anyway, so you know the regular list of stuff. But here we go. Let's start. Yes, I've got copious notes. Look at this now. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's it. 4. Nope, I was wrong. I lied. 5. 5 pages of copious notes for you today for week 12 of the football season. Here we go. Friday night, Louisville hosted Clemson. Now, it's supposed to be really hard to go on the road and win. It's supposed to be even harder to go on the road and win during the week, Thursday or Friday. It's supposed to be damn near impossible to go on the road and win if you're the worst team. And you should never go on the road and win if you're unranked and playing at a ranked opponent. But welcome to the ACC 2025 edition. Clemson goes on the road and beats Louisville. So it's time to point and laugh at Louisville. Now, we've been laughing at Louisville for a while because guess what? They lost last week too. So 2 weeks in a row now. And look, this is becoming a theme in the ACC. For the 3rd straight week now in the ACC, teams at the top are getting knocked off every week. It's like you're better off being in 2nd or 3rd or 4th place right now in the ACC and just waiting on teams above you to lose, because that's what's been happening. You go back a couple of weeks ago, Miami lost on the road to SMU. Georgia Tech lost to NC State. You go to last week, Virginia was in 1st place. They lost. Louisville was tied for 1st place. They lost. You fast forward to this week we just had. Louisville lost again. Duke in 1st place, lost. It's unbelievable what's happening at the top of the ACC every single week, and it's because the ACC is terrible from top to bottom. I don't think there's a legitimately even good team in the ACC this year. I don't. I think it is a terrible, terrible league. The whole question about, who's the best teams in the ACC, first of all, I don't know that it matters. what you need to focus on is who's making the ACC championship game, who's winning the ACC championship game, and could that team possibly be left out of the playoffs? Well, South Florida did them a favor by losing, but now you got to worry about Navy. Anyway, we'll get into some of that sort of conference standings things at the end. But the ACC is an absolute mess, and Louisville loses at home to Clemson on Friday night in one of the worst played football games that I've seen in a long, long time. There was a game last year, I live streamed it, and it ended up, people still talk about it, or at least my reaction to it. It was, I think, Arkansas and Oklahoma State last season. So early in the year, week 2 maybe. And it was just bad football. And it's almost become like a meme on this channel. Anytime something is really, really bad, it's like, oh yeah, as bad as that Arkansas-Oklahoma State game from 2024. This Louisville and Clemson game was hard to watch. It was two bad teams, two teams that looked poorly coached, two teams with not a lot of talent, which is just shocking from a Clemson perspective. The sort of drop off the cliff for Clemson has been unbelievable, but they did win, so let's get off of them for a second and talk about Louisville. You know, Jeff Brom's name has been mentioned for some of these head coaching openings that are going around, and I'm not going to say he's a terrible coach, but man, is he ever going to win anything? He played for the ACC title a couple of years ago and lost. He's got Louisville consistently in the 8-9 win range, you know? But you look around the ACC this year, and it's just so bad, and you're like, okay, well, Louisville and Brom, you know, they can rise to the top. Lose to the worst Clemson team in at least 15 years at home on a Friday night. And again, these Friday night games are weird, but it's usually when a ranked team has to go on the road to an unranked team. Think Florida State at Virginia from 2 months ago, right? That kind of thing. It's just, you don't usually see the higher ranked team lose at home. And that's what Louisville did. And it was a bad game. It was bad football. Louisville had the penalties against Louisville. And I've spent half this season, like everybody else has, crapping on the referees for screwing things up. This isn't a situation where the referees were just like injecting themselves into the game for no reason or inventing penalties, or you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they called that. It's just obvious penalty after obvious penalty. Just undisciplined, seemed uninterested, just bad football. Into the game, they've got not one but two chances to win the game with basically 30-yard field goals. They miss them both. And look, Clemson won the game. They weren't really any better. This wasn't an example of Clemson winning so much as it was Louisville losing. It just, both teams were trying to lose this game. Louisville misses that first field goal that would have won the game. Clemson gets the ball back with, I don't remember, under 2 minutes to go. Basically, all they got to do is get a first down. The game's over. They can't even get a first down. They end up having to punt the ball back to Louisville. Louisville marches right back down the field again, misses another fucking field goal. It was just a terrible, terrible football game. If this game would have been on Saturday, no one would have watched it, myself included. And I probably wouldn't even be talking about it on today's video. But because it was the Friday night game, and we've sort of made a habit around here this season of hanging out and streaming the Friday night games, and look, to Louisville and Clemson's credit, it ended up being a close game that kind of kept you watching till the end because you didn't know who was going to win. But my God, these are two bad football teams, two poorly coached football teams. And this really looked like one of those, you know, which team is going to lose, not which team is going to win. It's like which team is going to lose. And it ended up being Louisville. They lose 20-19 at home. Clemson's now 5-5. They play the Citadel this week, so I'm going to go out on a limb. It's a thin, shaky limb, but I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Clemson takes care of business against the Citadel, and then they play South Carolina. So I do think Clemson will make a bowl game. The question is, are they going to finish 6-6, or are they going to finish 7-5? More on South Carolina, obviously, later in this video, but that is one of those rivalry weekend games coming up in 2 weeks on Thanksgiving weekend. But Louisville, your season is over for real now. Again, I've got a conference standings segment that I've added to the end of this video. We don't normally do a lot of that on the your season is over thing, but with a couple of weeks to go, there are some interesting scenarios involving conference championship games and which teams can or can't make their conference championship games, which of course matters in terms of playoffs and seeding and all of that. So we'll look forward to some of that here in a second, but Louisville blew it here. If they had any chance at all, they had to win this game against a bad Clemson team. They didn't do it, and now their season is over. Clemson's season, of course, ended a long time ago, but they did beat Louisville 20-19. Texas is the next one on the list. Let's go. We'll start there. Look, here's the reality. Texas is not as good as Georgia. They're not. They're not as well coached as Georgia. They don't have the players Georgia has. They're close. They recruit well and they portal well. They're close, but it's not some sort of situation where Texas has overwhelming talent than Georgia. They don't. Best case scenario is that it's even, right? And the coaching mismatch that is existing right now between Kirby and his staff versus Sarkisian and that staff, you don't have to be like a college football analytical expert or X's and O's expert or film study guy or whatever to just watch these games between Georgia and Texas and see how bad Sarkisian and company are getting outcoached by Kirby. It happened twice last year. Texas did not have the offensive problems last year they have this year. They were a pretty good team offensively last year for the most part. And Georgia was not very good defensively. I'd argue Georgia was worse last year defensively. In fact, they were definitely worse last year defensively than they are this year, except for those two games against Texas. And now make it 3 times in a row that Georgia and Kirby and company, especially defensively, have just outmaneuvered Sarkisian at every fucking turn. These two teams have now played 3 times in the last 13 months, going back to last October, I guess it was, when Georgia traveled to Austin. Texas never got out of the shadow of their own goalposts in that game. I mean, Texas spent the majority of their time with the ball in that first matchup in the regular season last year inside their own 20-yard line. Georgia was getting every possession starting at midfield, and they won the game easily. Then you had the rematch in the SEC title game, which was close for a while, but again, in the second half, with a backup quarterback, Georgia came from behind and beats Texas to win the SEC championship. And another example of Sarkisian getting just massively outcoached by Kirby and company. And I'm only talking about defensively. Now let's flip the script and talk offense, because whatever you think about Georgia's offense, whatever you think about Texas defense, I would say that most people have a higher opinion of Texas defense than they do Georgia's offense. Over the course of this season, especially, and probably last season too, where Georgia's offense was nowhere near what it is this year. And even offensively, Georgia is getting the better of the Texas coaching staff. And then you go to just in-game coaching and decision-making. You know, Georgia picking their spots to get aggressive. Kirby is a notoriously conservative coach, to the chagrin sometimes of a lot of Georgia fans, where they sometimes want him to be more aggressive. He picks his spots, and he does it against Texas. A fake punt last year in the SEC title game caught Sarkisian and staff off guard, and then yesterday they hit him with the onside kick in the fourth quarter, and that put the game away. Right there. You combine that with the decision to go for it on a couple of fourth downs yesterday, both of which Georgia converted, one of them on their own side of the 50 when the game was still very much in doubt, 14-10. Georgia was up 4 points. They go for it on 4th and 1 on about their own 40. A play action sort of boot pass out in the flat, picks up the first down. They end up going down to score to take a 21-10 lead. And you're thinking, okay, now we got to cross our fingers and play some defense here. If you're a Georgia fan, you know, we got to cross our fingers, play some defense here after this kickoff. No, Kirby comes out, surprise onside kick. Georgia recovers it. They go down and score again. Basically, in about a 2-minute period of game time, it went from 14-10, where Texas had just scored, by the way, to make it 14-10. So they had all the momentum. Georgia gets the ball back, looks like a 3 and out. They go for it on 4th down, convert, then go down and score, then the onside kick, then score again. It went from 14-10, 4-point game with Texas having all the momentum, to 28-10 in about a 2-minute period. And then Georgia tacked on another touchdown later in the fourth quarter. just for shits and giggles, and end up winning the game 35-10. And they won the fourth quarter 21-0. To people that were wondering what it might look like if Georgia ever put together a sort of full, complete game where they play good ball on both sides of the ball for 4 quarters instead of 2, which has been their big problem the last couple of years when Georgia not showing up in the first half, what it would look like is what you saw yesterday against Texas. A Georgia team that scores touchdowns on their first 2 possessions to take a 14-3 lead, then plays suffocating defense for the rest of the game, and then Anaconda chokes them in the fourth quarter and runs away with it. What I saw yesterday from Georgia looks way more like 21-22 Georgia than anything I ever saw in 23 and 24. Is this team as good as the 21 and the 22 team? No. But that's the exact recipe Georgia used in 21 and 22 to beat a lot of good teams like Texas by 3 and 4 touchdowns, which is, again, what they did yesterday, winning this game by 25. Dominating in the first half, pulling away in the end, and piling it on. And that's exactly what they did to Texas yesterday. Outplayed them in every statistical way imaginable on paper. Outplayed them on the sidelines in terms of coaching. Outplayed them in terms of preparation and game plan. Absolutely dominated and humiliated the Shorthorn man. And I don't think Texas belongs anywhere near the 12-team playoff. Even if they beat Texas A&M, I don't think this year's 9-3 Texas team deserves to be in the playoffs. They have a horrible loss to a terrible Florida team in a game that they weren't even competitive in. The loss at Ohio State, I guess if you're ranking losses, I guess that's a good loss. You lost 14-7 on the road at Ohio State, who most people tell us is the best team in the country. You lost on the road at Georgia 35-10, though. So I don't know who the best team in the country is, but I do know you lost to Ohio State and Georgia on the road. You lost to Florida on the road, and that's bad. That is bad. I think Texas would need a lot of help to get into the 12-team playoff, even with a win against Texas A&M. I just think there's too many other 10-2 teams that would be deserving, some of which we'll talk about later in this video. But you, of course, got Ole Miss sitting on only 1 loss. They're getting in. Alabama sitting on 2 losses. They're getting in, barring some sort of weird loss to Auburn. They're getting in. Texas A&M with only with no losses at all is getting in. The Big Ten's going to get at least 3 teams in. Ohio State and Indiana are going for sure. I think the winner of Oregon Southern Cal this coming week is definitely in, and it's possible the loser of that game gets in too, especially if it's Oregon, because Oregon's got a chance, even if they lose, to finish 10-2 with a win against Washington in the last week. I just don't. Notre Dame is probably getting in, which I disagree with, but look where they're ranked. They're probably getting in, right? So that's another spot taken up. You've got the group of 5 that's going to take up a spot. You've got the ACC that's going to take up a spot. I just don't think there's going to be room for a 9-3 Texas, and I'm fine with that because the Texas team that I have seen play week in and week out this season does not look like a team who deserves any benefit of the doubt at 9-3. They just don't. They just don't look like a team that deserves that benefit of the doubt. So, what does it mean to beat Texas for the 3rd time in a row? Well, not much, because like I've told you before, when I look at the schedule, when anybody looks at the schedule and they see Texas on it, it's just another game. This overinflated opinion that Texas fans have of the Texas football program doesn't extend beyond the outreach of the Big 12. You're not the big fish in a little pond anymore. You're another game. Is it a difficult game sometimes? Yeah. Could Texas be a good team? Yeah. So can Arkansas. So can Ole Miss. So can Vandy. So can Florida on occasion. Whatever. I mean, that's what you are. You're another game on the SEC schedule that teams want to win because they want to win every game. But there's no circling the Texas game because it's Texas. That doesn't exist except for in your own feeble fucking mind. That's it. That's it. And, I've told you this season. I think I told you this when you lost to Florida. I'm going to tell you this again now. You don't get to play all your road games at Baylor anymore. You don't get to play all your road games at Kansas anymore. You've got to go into difficult environments in almost every road game you play. And it's catching up to you. It's catching up to you. You took your third loss. One of those losses is horrific on the road at Florida. One of those losses, you were not competitive at all, Georgia. The best thing on your resume is a one touchdown loss to Ohio State, or maybe a win against Oklahoma. But that loss to Ohio State is either the first or second best thing on your resume. And when you've got 3 losses and the second best thing on your resume is a loss, that doesn't scream playoff team to me. So you lost. Arch Manning, deer in headlights again. He just ain't it. It is what it is. He was 27 of 43 for 250 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, but never any consistency. Texas did go down and kick a field goal on their opening drive. I thought that was their best drive of the game, honestly. And then they had one other scoring drive in the third quarter where they cut the lead 14-10. Beyond that, they did absolutely nothing. And when it comes to running the ball, one of the worst rushing performances maybe I've ever seen from a Texas team. Now, I knew they had a bad offensive line. I've been yelling about that since the Florida game. And boy, bad offensive lines have a way of showing up when you least want them to, and that was the case yesterday. Texas ran the ball for 23 fucking yards. 23 yards rushing in an entire game of football. You're just not ready for prime time, Texas. Georgia even had 3 sacks. Your offensive line is so bad. Georgia can't sack the quarterback to save their life. He had 2 sacks against Mississippi State, but they're one of the worst teams in the league. He had 3 against you. I mean, I love Georgia, but my God, they're allergic to sacking the quarterback, but not against Texas. I think they've got 13 or 14 sacks now just against Texas in the last 3 times we've played them. We had, I think, 6 in Austin, 4 or 5 in the SEC championship game, whatever it was. Now, another 3 yesterday. How many sacks is that? 12, 13 sacks in the last 3 games against Texas. Y'all got work to do. Good luck in the Gasparilla Bowl or the Lion Quest Bowl or the fucking Cheez-It or Pop-Tart Bowl or whatever the fuck it is you're playing in, because you're not in the playoffs. You're not in the playoffs. So we beat you in Austin. We beat you in Atlanta. None of those games really eliminated you, though. We beat you in Austin. You still made it to the SEC championship game. We were there waiting, though. Beat you again. However, the committee felt bad for you and still put you in the playoffs, where someone else eliminated you. Georgia didn't get a chance to eliminate you last year. This year, Georgia had the chance to eliminate you and beat you in a place that they hadn't done it yet, Athens. So they've completed the trifecta now. They beat you at your place. They beat you neutral site. They beat you in Athens. I don't know what's next. The moon, the roof of a Walmart, whatever. Wherever it is, you'll lose again because you're just not on Georgia's level. Sorry. Take the fucking cowboy hat off. Take the VHS tape out of the thing, watching the reruns of Dallas and Dynasty over and over and over again, longing for the good old days of Texas football when they used to matter. Not the case anymore. You're just another team. That's it. You're just another team. And your season is fucking over. Courtesy of Uncle Lou. You're welcome. You're welcome. South Carolina. Look, I'm on record. I don't think South Carolina should fire Beamer. But you look around at the coach openings that already exist, plus the coach openings that are about to exist in the next week to 2 weeks, and then you try to figure out where you think South Carolina would be in line to pick a head coach were they to fire their head coach, and you'll understand why it is that I think South Carolina should keep Shane Beamer. While he has not won them anything, and you can make an argument he's had some bad seasons and definitely had some terrible games, he's also had some seasons where he drastically overachieved. He damn near made the playoffs last year at 9-3. And I know damn near ain't cutting it. He's been there 5 years. I get it. But I've been of the belief that South Carolina is better off keeping Shane Beamer and the continuity than rolling the dice on another new sort of starting all over again coaching search deal. After what I said Saturday, or after what I saw in this game Saturday, which we're going to talk about in a second, I still believe that all of those things are most likely true. I do think they're probably better off keeping him. However, it is going to be hard for anybody to get over what they saw Saturday when it comes to Shane Beamer and his future in Columbia. And there's more than just the one obvious reason why. The obvious is you're up 28, you're up 30-3 at halftime. 30-3. A 27-point lead at halftime. You come out in the second half, you don't score a single point, and you lose 31-30. That's the obvious, okay, I've seen enough of this guy, he's got to go. But then you have, and this is something I have harped on with Beamer and other coaches like Beamer for a long time. Beamer is one of these coaches that whatever word you want to use to describe it, whether it's quirky, weird, goofy, it sort of depends on whether you have a positive or negative outlook on Beamer, which word you choose to use to describe him, but we're all kind of talking about the same thing. I've described it as sort of a stand-up comedy routine that he does in a lot of press conferences where he likes to crack jokes. And look, when you're busy winning games and going 9-3 and almost making the playoffs, you can get away with that kind of stuff, right? When you're having a season like this, that shit don't work. The video and the interview of him running off the field at Texas A&M yesterday at halftime, again, up 30-3. They're interviewing him, and he was like, well, I don't know what people expected. We beat this same team by 24 points last year. We're not here just to roll the ball out on the field. We're here to dominate. We're here to dominate, and that's what we're doing. And then he runs off the field, basically doing this to the Texas A&M fans and pointing up in the stands and shit at halftime as he's running into the locker room. And then comes out in the second half, and we all saw what happened. They could do no wrong in the first half, offensively or defensively, and they could do no right in the second half. It was one of the worst halves of football you'll ever see. It was horrible. Now, to flip it around the other way a little bit and look at it from the Texas A&M angle, I don't know what the fuck happened to Texas A&M in the first half. Marcel Reed looked horrible. I mean, horrible. I thought he blew his Heisman chances in one half of football yesterday. At halftime, I was like, well, that's going to bump up, Julian Sayin and Ty Simpson and Mendoza. You can scratch Marcel Reed. I mean, he was horrible. That's the worst I've ever seen him look. And there was times last year he wasn't great. He looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the country in the first half. Defensively, they couldn't stop South Carolina. Nicholas Harbor was open on every play. And when he would catch the ball, there'd be, no one could tackle him. I haven't seen Texas A&M look that bad all year. I haven't seen South Carolina look that good all year. And then it was just, the script was totally flipped in the second half. It looked like two totally different teams on both sidelines. Texas A&M came out to start the third quarter like that game was tied 0-0. They didn't have their head down. They weren't saying, oh, well, this is, it's our first loss. Let's just fold it up, go home, and get ready for our last couple of games. We can still accomplish everything we want, even with this one loss. Let's just try to get out of here. They didn't do that. South Carolina did. And Texas A&M came out in the second half and put a beating on South Carolina that ought to be illegal, and probably is in a lot of religious countries. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was so bad, I found myself almost feeling bad for South Carolina fans. Almost. That was a collapse that we may never see again. They had the stat out all over the place yesterday, was that the biggest blown lead in the second half of an SEC game in like 35 years or whatever it was, something like that. Unbelievable. And again, because of the way Shane Beamer acted and conducted himself, not the way he coached, not any game decisions he made, but the way he acted and conducted himself in that interview right before halftime and then running off the field at halftime, combined with the performance his team put on the field in the second half, it's another one of these instances of Shane Beamer looking like a complete and total fucking clown. Now, again, as bad as that second half was, If South Carolina could have even mustered a field goal in that second half and won the game 33-31 instead of losing 31-30, I'm not on here talking about Shane Beamer's halftime interview. I'm not on here talking about Shane Beamer running off the field doing this and pointing up in the stands at the Texas A&M fans. We're just saying, yeah, well, he's quirky and he's goofy, but he wins. What can you do? But when you lose, boy, that stuff comes back to bite you. And again, with Shane Beamer, this isn't the first time. He's done this before, post-game press conferences where he comes out and you honestly can't tell if he's giving a post-game press conference or polishing up his stand-up comedy routine, right? You got the incident, was it last year or the year before, where he kicked a locker or something and broke his foot and ended up having to hobble around the sideline in a cast for the last half of the season. It's starting to be too many of these goofy, quirky, weird, again, whatever word you want to use to describe him, it's starting to be too many of these things associated with bad losses as opposed to it being associated with good seasons like they had last year with the 9-3. And so, even though I think it is extremely risky and probably still a bad idea overall if South Carolina were to fire Shane Beamer, because yesterday was so bad, they might do it. They might do it. And that's not even taking into account the fact that he might be taking the Virginia Tech job anyway. We don't know that. There's all kinds of rumors out there about James Franklin to Virginia Tech. I've got a coaching segment I'm going to touch on in a little bit, so we'll leave it at that. But so I've gone from where I would have, if you'd have asked me, I'd have said I'm 80% sure Beamer will be the coach at South Carolina next year. That would have been my stance two days ago. Now, 50-50. That was really bad yesterday. Again, to blow that lead, to not be able to score at all in the second half, to just watch A&M go up and down the field for the entire second half and that lead getting smaller and smaller and smaller and not being able to do anything to slow the bleeding, combined with the halftime antics, it might be a bridge too far, and it could be the end of the line for our boy, Shane Beamer. But South Carolina, your season is over. That was absolutely abysmal. What do I have written down here? Celebrating for no reason. Biggest comeback in 40 years. Bad look, bad loss. Marcel Reed, night and day difference from the first half to the second half. The police officer. Back to blue. There is nobody that should be just blindly back this group of people, period, no matter. Stop all that. There are good cops and bad cops, just like there are good teachers and bad teachers, good firemen and bad firemen, good YouTubers and bad YouTubers. Oh, he's just back to blue. Look, that cop's a fucking idiot and a moron. And I guarantee you, he's the stereotypical cop. He was picked on in high school, and he became a cop so that he could give his bullies speeding tickets for going 36 and a 35. He's everything that people make fun of about police officers. That's that Texas A&M cop. Inserting himself into situations where he's not needed, creating problems where problems don't exist instead of solving problems. That's a police officer's job. Solve a problem. Don't create one. Don't create one. Nicholas Harper's been hurt. His hamstring's been bothering him. He scores a long touchdown. He reaches down. He grabs the back of his leg. He starts to limp into the locker room. Some other players go in there. A cop goes back there like what? What do you think? They're breaking in back there? It's not a stranger running around in street clothes. You know it's a fucking football player. He just scored. He's got a uniform and a helmet on. You go over there. You insert yourself into a situation where you're not fucking needed. You purposely bump into two different players. And then when one of them doesn't move enough out of the way, you think you got to stop, turn around, point, and yell at him like that? Fuck you. Fuck you, bitch. Fuck you. And he got relieved of his duties, and he should have. He fucking should have. God damn, man. It's like I talk about it with when I go to gambling and these pit bosses. Pit bosses are the police of casinos. I know casinos have their own security, but these pit bosses at casinos are like these dickhead cops. They get bored, and so they insert themselves into situations when they're not fucking needed. A pit boss and a cop should be out of sight, out of mind, unless somebody fucking needs you for something. And nobody needed your dumb ass. Nobody. Fucking Roscoe P. Coltrane acting motherfucker. He should be fired. Fuck him. Back to blue. I back people who do their job the right way, whether it's the person bagging my groceries at the grocery store or whether it's a police officer. You want to know what the difference is between a police officer having a bad day and the guy that bags your groceries having a bad day? Do I even have to tell you? The guy bagging your groceries can have a bad day. What's the worst that's going to happen? He's going to put a can of cream corn on top of your bread and squish a couple of pieces. That's the worst fucking thing that'll happen. What's going to happen if you have a run-in with this dickhead fucking cop on a back road somewhere when he's having a bad day? What do you think's you're going to wind up fucking dead. That's what's going to happen. And he's going to be in front of a news camera screaming the "I feared for my life" routine like they're trained to do every time they kill somebody they're not supposed to fucking kill. Fuck that cop. Fuck him. Did you know Bama lost yesterday? Bama lost to Oklahoma 23-21. And look, and I understand Oklahoma fans being happy and excited. It's a big win on the road against Bama. Oklahoma sitting on 2 losses. So just like Texas, Bama was in a must-win spot on the road as an underdog. And the difference is Oklahoma was able to get the job done, whereas Texas wasn't. Oklahoma fans are loving Georgia today for taking that trash out. Yep, we don't have to fuck with them for the rest of the year. You're welcome on that too. But here's the thing with Oklahoma. They didn't play very good either. Not on offense anyway. It's kind of the same Oklahoma team we've been watching all year. An offense that can't do anything. And a suffocating front seven. And to be honest, their secondary I thought played good too. I've been kind of wondering about Oklahoma's secondary a little. Their defense overall is great. But I've been wondering, their front seven is so good. Is that masking something on the back end, mate? But I thought their secondary played really good. They were able to get to Ty Simpson when they couldn't get to him on the ground. They were harassing him all day long. He was seeing ghosts. He didn't know where the defenders were coming from, which side. Were they coming up the middle? Was it a blitz? Was it not a blitz? They had Ty Simpson in a fucking blender. Oklahoma's defense is the real deal. That front four, front seven, they're on par with that Ohio State front seven. Ohio State might have the best defense in the country. It is really, really good, generationally good. Oklahoma is not far off from that. And I've wondered how good is it, this Oklahoma defense? The front four, the front seven, maybe the best in football, but overall that defense, no joke. No fucking joke. And they harassed Alabama all day long. Alabama couldn't run the ball again. Of course, Alabama can't run the ball against air because they're fucking soft. So nobody should have been surprised that the Gumps couldn't run the ball against Oklahoma. You got one of the best front fours and front sevens in all of football against a team, Alabama, that's soft as fuck and can't run the ball against air in practice drills. So that wasn't a surprise. My question going into the game, what will happen if they're able to get that pressure on Ty Simpson? Is Ty Simpson going to rise to the occasion, get rid of the ball early, spin, make plays with his legs, escape the pressure? And he did some of that. Didn't do nearly enough. The other thing that surprised me about this game, because here's the thing, you look at the box score of this game, you would not know Oklahoma won the game. I think I wrote some of this down. 23-21, Oklahoma gets the win. Turnovers made a huge difference in this game. Oklahoma took care of the ball, Bama didn't. The O-line for Bama got dominated because they're soft, of course. 4 sacks. OU only had 200 yards of offense. That's why I picked Bama to win. I said, how is Oklahoma? I trust the defense. So say they hold Bama to 20, right? Say they hold Bama to 20, 21, 23, 24. Great. That's amazing with that offense they have and what Ty Simpson and those receivers can do. That would be amazing if they can hold Bama to around 20 to 24 points. How the fuck do they score, though? And if you look at the stats in the box score, you'll find yourself asking the same thing. Then you realize they're doing nothing but kicking field goals. And I'm like, I said it at the halftime video. They're hanging in there. They're playing great defense. They've even got a couple of good drives. But they're getting down there and they're settling for field goals instead of touchdowns. And it's hard to pull off an upset on the road when you're settling for field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. They did it anyway. They had a pick six and only scored one other touchdown. They only scored one touchdown on offense, Oklahoma, and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. That is an impressive fucking win. That is an impressive fucking win. I'm not taking anything away from Oklahoma. That's something Georgia can't fucking do. Lord knows that. They can't beat Bama anywhere. Oklahoma did it. That's an impressive win. 4 sacks. Oklahoma had 200 yards of offense and won the game. They scored 2 touchdowns and kicked 3 field goals, and one of those touchdowns was a pick 6. So they only scored 1 offensive touchdown and went into Tuscaloosa and won the game. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. So what does that mean as far as my opinion about Oklahoma? It's still the same. I think Oklahoma's got one of the best defenses in football, and I think their offense is trash. They've got no running game either. John Mateer is a little bit feast or famine-y. Yeah, he had some great games in September. He had some real clunkers over the last few weeks. Played good against Tennessee a couple of weeks ago on the road. Played good enough here in this one at Tuscaloosa. But I think Oklahoma might have the lowest ceiling of any potential playoff team outside of whatever ACC teams get in. I truly feel that way. And I do think Oklahoma's likely going to the playoffs at 10-2. Now they got 2 road games to close out the season. So it is by no means some sort of guaranteed thing that Oklahoma is just going to, punch two W's over the next 2 weeks and roll into the playoffs at 10-2. I just got done lecturing Texas about playing on the road. Do I need to do that to you too? You have to play at Arkansas. Now, that's going to be a weird game because Arkansas puts up 500 yards of offense a game but has no defense at all. So Oklahoma should be able to move the ball and score against Arkansas, but it's on the road. We'll see. And then they close out with a game on the road at LSU, who will have nothing to play for other than ruining your season. And I'm just telling you, I'm probably going to pick Oklahoma to win both of those games. But you're not closing the season out on the road at TCU and on the road at Kansas State. These are going to be 2 hostile environments with teams that are capable of beating you if you show up and fuck around. But that was a good win for Oklahoma yesterday. That defense is the real fucking deal. Bama, what does this mean for you? Well, it's your first SEC loss, so probably still going to the SEC championship game. It's going to be a lot of weird tiebreaker scenarios at the end of the year. I see a lot of people, Bama beat Georgia, so they'll go. Head-to-head is out, though. Head-to-head doesn't matter. Head-to-head only matters if there's only 2 teams tied. Right now, you've got Bama with 1 loss, Georgia with 1 loss, and Ole Miss with 1 loss. Bama beat Georgia. Georgia beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss and Bama didn't play. So the tiebreaker, as far as the head-to-head result, that's out the window. It goes to combined winning percentage of common opponents and shit like that. Anyway, we'll get to that. But Bama is likely still going to the SEC championship game, but it's not because they beat Georgia. It's because of the combined opponent record. Anyway, we'll get to that when I talk about the standings at the end. They play a nobody this week, and then they play Auburn in the Iron Bowl. I'm going to pick Alabama to win that game. Most people are going to pick Alabama to win that game. But just like with Oklahoma playing on the road at LSU, Auburn's only reason for waking up anymore is to maybe ruin Bama's season by beating them at the end because they've got nothing to play for and no head coach. Now, you got the added sort of urgency in the Alabama-Auburn game of it being the Iron Bowl, a rivalry game where weird fucking things happen, especially in games at Jordan-Hare. All that aside, I would expect Alabama to still go in there and win that game and finish the season 10-2. And whether they go to the SEC championship game or not, and whether they win the SEC championship game or not, I do believe a 10-2 Bama is getting into playoffs. If they lose to Auburn, no. They won't. They will have 2 horrible fucking losses. And I'm just here to tell you, if you lose to Auburn, don't spend all of December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and August crying about getting left out at 9-3 like you did last year. There's not a team on the planet that if they lose to Florida State and Auburn in the same year deserve to be anywhere near the playoffs. They don't. Those are 2 horrible fucking teams. Don't lose to Auburn and you'll be in. Lose to Auburn and you won't. It's that simple. It's that simple for the Bama man. Pitt, it is not simple for Pitt. Pitt got blown out by Notre Dame. So, Pitt, your season is over. Congratulations. Whoopity fucking do, and the rest and that and two and also. I think everybody with a brain saw this coming from a mile away. Pitt's not very good. Pitt's in the ACC. They're tied for first in the ACC. That didn't mean shit. The ACC's fucking dog water. Pitt got donkey stomped by West Virginia. West Virginia can't even win games in the Big 12. And they beat the fuck out of Pitt. So I wasn't surprised in the least that Notre Dame went up and beat the shit out of a terrible Pitt team. What's sad is that that's Notre Dame's probably second best win of the year. God damn. That's Notre Dame. Southern Cal and Pitt. You're hanging your hat on that, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's headed to the playoffs if they go 10-2. I don't think they should be ranked ahead of Miami unless Miami loses another game, but that's a different argument for a different day, I guess. I mean, you got two teams that have the exact same record, and they played each other. One team won, one team lost. It's pretty obvious to me which of those two teams should be ranked ahead of the other. The team that won the fucking game. It'd be different if Miami had 3 losses or 4 losses or 5 losses, but they don't. They've got the same number of losses, too, as Notre Dame does. I don't know. But I do think Notre Dame's headed to the playoffs. But Pitt lost 37-15. Pitt called a fucking timeout. Narduzzi, what is Narduzzi doing, the coach at Pitt? First of all, he gives a press conference this week, and he's asked about the Notre Dame game and, the chances of winning and what it means. And he's like, hey, whoa. This game don't mean shit. We can lose 100-0. I'm worried about the ACC games after that. And I get his point. His ticket to the playoffs is going to be through winning the ACC. That's the only way. So, in that respect, yeah, the Notre Dame game doesn't matter. But to have your coach say the week of a game, yeah, I don't care, we can lose this game 100-0, that's not a good look. That's not a good look. And then, at the end of the game, when you're getting beat basically 100-0, you call a timeout with what was there, 11 seconds to go or whatever it was? Pitt has the ball near the red zone. They're down 30, 40 points. They call a timeout so they can score a touchdown at the end of the game. To what? Make yourselves feel better? You already spent all week telling us that you didn't care if you lost 100-0. So why would you call a timeout at the end of a game that you're down 30, 40 points? You got 0 chance of winning, 11 seconds to go, just to score some feel-good point. I don't know, man. I didn't like that from Narduzzi. I didn't like that at all. Pitt was under 200 yards of offense and a turnover. The ACC is just dog shit. Pitt might be the best team in the ACC. They look like they didn't belong in the same field yesterday with Notre Dame. The ACC is such a fucking mess. Georgia Tech's still sitting there with 1 loss total this year. But you watch them play. Their defense is horrendous. I mean, horrendous. They gave up another bunch of points this week to, was it Boston College? 1-win Boston College. They're just bad, man. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Anyway, Pitt. Your season's not really over because I guess you can still win the ACC. There's a world where the ACC doesn't get in the playoffs, though. There's nothing in the playoff contract that says Power 4 like that. The phrase Power 4 doesn't exist inside of the playoff contract. The playoff contract just says the 5 highest ranked conference champions automatically make the playoffs. The 5 highest ranked conference champions. Well, because we have 4 major conferences. We sort of explain that by saying, yeah, the 4 conference winners plus a group of 5 team. But that's not how it's written. It's the 5 highest ranked conference champions. You got James Madison, who's probably going to go 12-1 with a conference championship, and they're in the Sun Belt. And then you've got the American that's got Memphis, South Florida, and Tulane. Now, South Florida took another loss this weekend. That was good news for the ACC, bad news for the American. But if a team like Duke or Pitt or somebody like that with a lot of losses overall, blowout losses, in Pitt's case, losses to bad teams like West Virginia, it's possible that the winner of the ACC championship game is ranked behind James Madison and South Florida or Memphis, whoever wins the American. James Madison is going to win the Sun Belt or whatever it is. It's possible the ACC champion is the 6th highest ranked conference champion. Yeah, that's possible. Because you're going to have the SEC champ, the Big 10 champ, the Big 12 champ. That's 3. Then you're going to have James Madison out of the Sun Belt. That's 4. And let's say Memphis out of the American. That would be 5. If those 5 conference champions are ranked higher than whoever wins the ACC championship game, the ACC is not getting into playoffs. Now, Georgia Tech's got a real shot, right? Even if Georgia Tech loses to Georgia at the end of the year, and they're 10-2, and they then win the ACC at 11-2 because of where they're ranked now, I think Georgia Tech would get in. But depending on who wins that ACC championship game, the ACC could get left out. We'll see. But Pitt, boy, you got embarrassed yesterday. I told somebody on Saturday before kickoff, I said, if a coach tells me his team's losing 100-0, I believe him. So I bet Notre Dame in that game, and it was a no-sweat win for Uncle Lou. Pitt just embarrassed themselves. So there you go. That's the helmets. You got South Florida down there, too, who, of course, lost to Navy. Bad loss for South Florida. They were the talk of the town the first month of the season, South Florida. They beat Boise State. They beat Florida. Kind of got handled by Miami. But they were a hot team. They were ranked in September in the top 25. Then they started losing games, though. They lost to Memphis earlier this year. Now they lose to Navy now. So they got several losses. So I don't know about South Florida making the playoffs now. Memphis lost the other week, too, though. So I don't know. It might end up being James Madison in the ACC. If you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd have said, yeah, the ACC might get left out. It's still possible the ACC gets left out, but because some of these other G5 teams are losing, I think the ACC probably does end up getting in, and probably James Madison will be your group of 5 playoff. Sorry, my shoe fell off. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Got a few other games I just want to mention quickly here. Oregon won again. They beat Minnesota 42-13. They're 9-1, but they got 2 tough games to close out the season. Home against Southern Cal, on the road at Washington. Oregon, to me, is kind of like Oklahoma. I think, I said if Oklahoma goes 10-2, they're probably going to get in, right? And if Oregon goes 10-2, they're probably going to get in. But like Oklahoma, I watch Oregon play, and they just don't look great to me. I'm not saying they don't deserve to be in the playoffs if they go 10-2. I'm not saying they're not good. Oklahoma's clearly good. Oregon's clearly good. Neither one of those teams looks great to me, though. And even though Oregon won this one big, I don't know. I've had questions about Oregon all year. I continue to have those same questions. They close out the season at home against Southern Cal and on the road at Washington. So we'll see. That game against Southern Cal is fucking huge because it's basically for third place. Michigan only has 1 conference loss. Indiana and Ohio State have 0 conference losses. Oregon has 1 conference loss. Southern Cal has 1 conference loss. Their other loss was to Notre Dame. So it's going to get interesting. Ohio State 48-10 against UCLA. I think Ohio State's the best team in the country. When you watch them play, they look like a lion or something in the jungle that finds like a baby squirrel, and they're just batting it around and playing with it. Man, we can kill you anytime we want to. We're just going to play with you here for 2 or 3 hours and go on our way. They are so good at almost, forget every position group, at almost every single position. Left guard, left tackle, right tackle, tight end, both wide receivers, the quarterback, obviously, 2 good running backs, 2 good safeties, 3 or 4 excellent corners, 7 great linebackers, great defensive line. Their defense is the closest thing I've ever seen to 2021 Georgia. It is that good. Their defense is unreal. Offensively, I think they're probably the best offense in the country too. In a lot of games, it doesn't show because they don't need to. They're so much better than the teams that they're playing. Everything's kind of basic and vanilla, not because it has to be, but because it's all it needs to be. And I have a feeling that starting with the Michigan game in 2 weeks, I think Ohio State might beat Michigan by 40. I'm serious. I think Ohio State is playing a little cat and mousey right now. But they have got, out of their 22 starters, 18 or 19 of them are NFL players. I mean, maybe all of them. They are absolutely loaded. They are loaded. I'm not saying that they're running through the playoffs and winning every game 50-0 and winning the national title again. You have to show up every week to play. they have a bad day. Julian Sayin has a bad day. The defense has an off day. They can get beat. I don't think they're unbeatable. Nobody's unbeatable. But boy, if they play their best football, then they're probably going to win it all again. I don't know that there's a team that can beat them when they're on. They look really good. Indiana 31-7 over Wisconsin. Mendoza 22 of 24, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. He's got to be at the top of the Heisman list, I think. Texas Tech won again 48-9. I think Texas Tech's legit. I think they can play with anybody. I'd love to see. Texas Tech's defense is no joke too. Texas Tech and Ohio State. I hope we get to see that game. I think that'll be a good game if we get to see it. Ole Miss survives Florida. This was weird. What was Lane Kiffin doing here? Coaching both teams? I don't think Lane Kiffin's staying at Ole Miss. Every day that goes by, I'm more and more certain that he's leaving Ole Miss. I don't know where he's going. Could be Florida, could be LSU, could be the NFL. I don't think he's staying at Ole Miss, though. He was asked after the game point blank, are you going to be the coach at Ole Miss next year? He said, I love Ole Miss. I love it here, but I'm not going to get into answering those types of questions. I feel like it's a disservice to my players. No, bud. In fact, the exact opposite is true. It would be a service to your players if you would come out and tell them you're staying or going. I mean, let people know what you're doing. I don't think you're staying there. But they won again. They beat Florida 34-24. BYU won big 44-13 over TCU. Utah won big 55-28 over Baylor. I don't care what the standings are in the Big 12. I'm going to put all the standings up in a minute. Texas Tech, Utah, and BYU are 3 really good teams. Those are 3 legitimately good teams. I don't care what you think about the Big 12. Arizona State took a step back this year. Kansas State's been disappointing. TCU and Baylor aren't very good. West Virginia's terrible. Kansas, another hot start, and then a disappointing second half of the season. All that's true. I think BYU, Utah, and Texas Tech are 3 legitimately good teams. That's what separates, to me, the Big 12 from the ACC right now. To me, Texas Tech, BYU, and Utah, those 3 teams, better than anybody in the ACC. I think the ACC right now is clearly the worst of what we call the Power 4 conferences, and I don't even think it's particularly close. The Big 12 has 3 legitimately really good teams. Now, 3 of them aren't making the playoffs. I do think it's possible to make it. Utah is probably going to be the one that gets left out. But I think Utah's a legitimately good team. But BYU and Texas Tech are likely headed to that championship game. They both, BYU, Utah, and Texas Tech all won again. So did Miami, 41-7 over NC State. I think Miami's the best team in the ACC. That doesn't matter. They've got 2 losses. They might not even make the ACC championship game. So, again, who's the best team in the league versus who's playing in the championship game is not always the same answer. I think Miami's the most talented team in the ACC, and when they play well, I don't think anybody in the ACC can beat them. The problem is they're too inconsistent. And they've got 2 games left, and they're both on the road for Miami. At Virginia Tech, they should win that one, and at Pitt. If they win both of those games, I'll just ask y'all, if they win both of those games and they're sitting there at the end of the season 10-2, but they're not in the ACC championship game, and Notre Dame is 10-2, should they both get in the playoffs? Should neither of them get in the playoffs? Or should only one or the other get in? Remember, you can't really hold not making the ACC championship game against Miami as it relates to Notre Dame, because Notre Dame's not making a conference championship game either. They will have the same record, 10-2, and one team will have beat the other. What would you do in that scenario with Notre Dame and Miami if they're both 10-2 at the end of the year and Miami's not in the ACC championship game? What would you do in relation to the playoffs? Let me know. I'm curious. Georgia Tech survives. Probably the worst Power 4 team in the country, Boston College, 36-34. Georgia Tech's got serious defensive issues. They've given up almost 100 points in the last 2 games. NC State, now Boston College. Miami just beat the will to live out of NC State. I don't know if Georgia Tech's getting caught looking ahead to the Georgia game because it means so much to them, because it does. It's their Super Bowl every year. It is what it is. They'd love nothing more than to beat Georgia. Of course, they can't. They play every year. They beat them 3 times in the last 26 years or whatever it is. It's just, I don't know. But they did win 36-34. And Haynes King, he had another good game. Haynes King is putting up video game numbers over there at Georgia Tech against Boston College and NC State. I remember watching him play Clemson and struggling to get a first down for the majority of the game. Seems like forever ago. I don't know. But they've only got one loss, 36-34. I mean, I've got them in my top 10, so it's not like I'm just shitting on them. I've got them, what do I got them, 11 or 12, something like that? But boy, they got defensive problems. Southern Cal beat Iowa 26-21. They're now 8-2. Southern Cal is. Remaining schedule for Southern Cal at Oregon. Might be the game of the year in the Big Ten. A massive fucking game. Winner of that game is probably going to be the third in the Big Ten. And if the Big Ten gets 3 teams in, it's probably going to be the winner of this game. Southern Cal at Oregon this coming week. They end the season at home against UCLA. Michigan beat Northwestern 24-22. Michigan somehow is 8-2 and only has one Big Ten loss. Their other loss is to Oklahoma. They got Ohio State coming up. I already told you a minute ago, I think Ohio State might beat them by 40. They play at Maryland this week, then they play Ohio State. But they're 8-2. They beat whatever Northwestern is, 24-22. More on that game when we get to the analytics special. Virginia beat Duke 34-17. Duke pretty much eliminated now. Tennessee beat a high school team 42-9 because that's what they like to do. It makes them feel better to run the score up on these bad teams. Meanwhile, every time they play a ranked team, they lose. Oklahoma, Georgia, Bama, loss. Their best win is Mississippi State. Congratulations. They play at Florida and home against Vandy the last 2 games of the season. Navy, talked about them, beat South Florida. Navy's 8-2, 6-1 in the conference. South Florida is now 4-2 in their conference. They're in different, in that conference. So South Florida's not even making their conference championship game probably. So probably cross them off your playoff list. Good win for Navy. Arizona beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati was ranked. Won't be anymore. That's Cincinnati's second Big 12 loss. They lose to Arizona 30-24, so Cincinnati now out of it. North Carolina lost again. They're 4-6. They lost to Wake Forest. They got to win both their last games just to get bowl eligible. They play Duke at home and on the road at NC State. They won't win both of those. North Carolina not making a bowl game. Florida State with a rare win, 34-14 over Virginia Tech. Florida State now 5-5. They only need one more win to get bowl eligible. They play at NC State and at Florida. The Florida State game, man. I don't know. 2 fucking dumpster fires there. Oklahoma State lost. Oklahoma State's 1-9. 1-9. Of course, they fired Gundy 2 months ago. They lost 14-6 to Kansas State. West Virginia lost again. They're now 4-7, so that's 11 games. They only have 1 game left, West Virginia, so they're not making a bowl game. They're 4-7. The best they can do is 5-7. They lost to Arizona State. Penn State beat Michigan State 28-10. They're now 4-6. Penn State has to win its last 2 games to get bowl eligible. They were picked to win the national title by a lot of people in August. They were in the top 5 of every single preseason ranking. They're now 4-6 and need to win their last 2 games just to get bowl eligible. Home against Nebraska, on the road at Rutgers. Illinois and Washington both won. They're both 7-3, but they're forget playoffs for them, right? Because there's just too many Big Ten teams still ahead of them. Obviously, you've got Ohio State, Indiana, but then you got Michigan, Southern Cal, and Oregon. So Illinois and Washington are like 6th and 7th in the Big Ten at 7-3. So good teams, but no shot at the playoffs this year. LSU beat Arkansas in, a tree fell in the woods and no one was around to hear it game. Missouri beat Mississippi State. Missouri's now 7-3. Eli Drinkwitz is the most overrated coach in the country. The most overrated coach in the country. More on that in a minute. Best teams I saw play this weekend. Georgia and Ohio State. That's not a prediction of anything. Georgia's got issues on the defensive side of the ball. Georgia's got issues. Ohio State looks great almost every week. So you can almost put them on that list any week. This is just the best teams I saw play. Impressive win from Georgia, and Ohio State again, they look like grown-ups playing with 4-year-olds just messing around. It's just everything. They make everything look so easy. Ohio State does. Paper plate special this week, it's got to be Beamer in South Carolina. blowing that lead. I mean, come on. You knew it. Yeah, there was no debate here. This was the easiest paper plate special pick of the week that I've ever had to make. You're winning on the road, an undefeated number 3 ranked team in the country, Texas A&M, and you're up 30-3 on them at halftime. You've got Marcel Reed in the phone booth. He can't do anything, throwing interceptions, sacks every time he drops back, getting harassed. You're throwing bombs. Lenore Sellers is having the best game of his season by far. And then y'all never came out of the locker room in the second, didn't score a single point in the second half and let them come all the way back and beat you 31-30. The obvious paper plate special. Here's my Heisman list in order. Number 1, Mendoza. I think if it were up to me to give the Heisman away and I was giving it away today, I would give it to Mendoza. You're the Heisman winner. I think Marcel Reed with that comeback and how as bad as it was in the first half, and it was bad. I think a lot of people watched the second half of that game, and a lot of people went, wow, look at Marcel Reed. I've got him second right now on my Heisman list. I've got Julian Sayin third. Julian Sayin could have 5,000 yards passing if he want and 50 touchdowns if that's what Ohio State wanted to do. But again, they run the ball a lot. They get big leads. They slow everything down in the second half. So when you look at his numbers from week to week or over the course of the season, he doesn't have these eye-popping video game season stats, right? He completes a high percentage of passes generally, and he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, and that's great. But the Heisman, a lot of it is a numbers award. And again, it's not because he's not good enough to have the good numbers. I feel like I've been very complimentary of Ohio State in this video with what I've said about Ohio State. So I hope the Ohio State fans will give me a break when I say I've got Sayin third in the Heisman. It's got nothing to do with me thinking that Mendoza and Reed are even better than Sayin. I don't even necessarily think that. But when you look at the numbers, I think Sayin's third right now. I've got Gunnar Stockton at fourth. And then I've got Diego Poverty at fifth. But I think it's down as far as who's going to win it. I think it's down to Mendoza, Reed, and Sayin. Not Simpson's out. Fuck Simpson. Sorry. You're out, bud. You're out. See you later. Or maybe we won't. I don't know. Either way, you're not on my list anymore, bud. Type. Coaching thoughts. I'm almost convinced at this point Lane Kiffin's leaving. Where is he going? Don't know. Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. Why is he being mentioned for all these high-profile jobs? I think he's the most overrated coach in college football. I'm dead serious. Listen to this. These are his SEC wins this year. South Carolina, Auburn, and Mississippi State. Those are the three teams, the three SEC teams that Missouri has beaten. They have lost to Bama, Vandy, A&M. They play at Oklahoma and at Arkansas. So, what do you think will happen? Missouri plays at Oklahoma and at Arkansas. They will lose to Oklahoma and they will beat Arkansas. He is the literal definition of mid. He loses to the top half of the SEC every time he plays, and he beats the bottom half of the SEC every time he plays. And he's done this now 3 years in a row. He's been the beneficiary of some generous scheduling. Just put it that way. He loses to every ranked team he plays. And then he beats South Carolina, Auburn, and Mississippi State, and later Arkansas. I don't think he's very good. I think Summerall's going to Auburn. I think James Franklin's going to either Arkansas or Virginia Tech. I think Kiffin's going to either LSU or Florida. Whoever doesn't get Kiffin, who will they get? Dillingham? Fish? What about Jimbo Fisher? What about Jimbo Fisher to LSU? I think that, maybe, I don't know. We tend to forget about Jimbo Fisher because he's been gone for a year or two, but he's still out there lurking. Jimbo Fisher. Talked about Beamer already. All right, the we're back list. A&M clearly first. They are almost certainly headed to the SEC title game, barring something weird against Texas. But they're clearly first on the we're back list. Number 2, Miami. I still think there's an outside shot Miami gets into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make the ACC championship game, although the way the last few weeks have gone in the ACC, with the top teams losing almost every week, Miami could wake up on championship Saturday and find themselves in the ACC championship game. I don't know. It's been a weird year in the ACC, but I've got them second on the weird back list. Tennessee, I've got as third. Decent year for Tennessee. Obviously, they're going to miss the playoffs. They've already lost 3 games. They could lose another one. It's not a bottom out year. They're not 4-8. Like, it's a decent year. Got them third. Nebraska fourth. Yeah, lost Raiola. Never really had a shot anyway. Florida fifth. Auburn sixth. They're so far from being back. Yeah, it's not even describable. Josh Pate special tonight. Texas. Josh Pate gets accused of being an SEC homer. I don't know if he is or isn't. But if he comes on tonight with the Texas, can still make the playoffs and beat Texas A&M 9-3, they'd have really good win against Texas A&M and Oklahoma. He's not going to mention the fact that they lost to Florida. He's not going to mention the fact they got blown out by Georgia. He'll mention a close loss at Ohio State and wins against Oklahoma and potentially A&M. They're 9-3 and strength of schedule and 9-3. You don't deserve to be in. You got blown out by Georgia. You lost to Florida. You don't deserve to be in. Sorry. But Josh Pate will tell you do, so go check him out tonight. And, of course, Bama. Every time Bama loses, it's fire everybody, burn the whole thing down, start over, blah, blah, you know how Alabama fans are. They don't handle losing well at all. At all. And so y'all might not know this, Bama fans, because you don't normally, y'all don't normally lose. So you might not know this. Make sure you watch Josh Pate tonight. Anytime your team loses, you need to be watching Josh Pate that Sunday night because he's going to make you feel better. That's his job. That's why we keep him around here on the YouTubes, is to make the losers feel better. So Texas and Bama fans, tune in to Juice Poot tonight. He'll make you feel better. Analytics special of the week, Michigan. Michigan's down 2. They're down 1 or 2 points. A minute to go in the game. They're in field goal range. They go for it on 4th down and don't get it. Instead of kicking the game-winning field goal. They're like on the 30-yard line. It would have been like a 40-yard field goal. Under a minute to go. A field goal would win it. They go for it on 4th down, don't get it. Now, they got the ball back and ended up kicking a field goal and winning. The dumbest play call I've ever seen. Remember, Michigan only has 2 losses. Only 1 Big Ten loss. They're still in it. We don't talk about Michigan a lot in terms of the playoffs because we all just kind of assume they're not getting in because you got the Ohio State game looming. If they beat Ohio State, they're going to be 10-2 with 1 Big Ten loss. Not only will they be going to the playoffs, they might be going to the Big Ten title game. I don't say that to say I think any of that's happening. I say that to say at the end of the Northwestern game, they still had all that to play for. And still, instead of kicking what would have been a game-winning 35-yard field goal against Northwestern, they went for it and didn't get it. Now, the Michigan fans say, oh, well, the kicker had missed 2 field goals earlier. I don't give a fuck if you missed 100. Your best chance to win that game in that scenario is to kick the fucking field goal. And you didn't do it. Fucking idiot. Sharon Moore doesn't know what he's doing. The offense has been just as bad this year as it was last year. Bryce Underwear doesn't look a single bit better today than he did in week 1. Your offense doesn't exist. If y'all are going to keep Sharon Moore, you better completely overhaul that offensive coaching staff and honestly the players too, through portal or whatever. But I don't think Sharon Moore is a top-tier college football head coach. I don't. And I think y'all should fire him and move on. But we'll see what you do. Conference standings. ACC. Georgia Tech, SMU, Virginia, and Pitt all have 1 conference loss. That's 4 teams tied for first in the ACC with 2 weeks to go. There are 2 teams with 2 losses, Miami and Duke. It's anybody's guess who's going to make the ACC championship game. And it's going to involve weird 3rd and 4th tiebreakers and shit like that. But that's the ACC for you. The Big Ten. Indiana and Ohio State, 0 conference losses. It looks like it's going to be Indiana, Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, barring some huge upsets in the last 2 weeks. Southern Cal, Oregon, and Michigan all have 1 conference loss. It's going to get interesting for that 3rd and 4th playoff spot in the Big Ten. There's nobody in the Big Ten with 2 conference losses, so it's down to these 5 teams in the Big Ten for either 3 or 4 playoff spots. I'm thinking 3. Indiana, Ohio State, Southern Cal, Oregon, Michigan. I think 3 of those teams get into the playoffs. Indiana and Ohio State, 0 conference losses. Southern Cal, Oregon, Michigan, 1 conference loss. Probably Indiana, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Big 12, Texas Tech and BYU each have 1 conference loss. Probably going to see a rematch of those 2 teams in the Big 12 title game. If one of those 2 teams slips up, Utah, Houston, Arizona State, and Cincinnati all have 2 conference losses. So they're 1 game back. So that's 6 teams left in the Big 12 that could make the Big 12 championship game. The winner, of course, heads to the playoffs. And then in the SEC, you've got A&M with no conference losses, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Bama, each with 1 conference loss. I still think it's going to be A&M and Bama that get to the SEC title game, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. Oklahoma's got losses to, who did Oklahoma lose to? Texas. And what was Oklahoma's second loss? Why am I drawing a blank on Oklahoma's second loss? Anyway, they've got 2 conference losses. So while Oklahoma could still make the playoffs, they're not making the SEC championship game. A&M, no conference losses. Georgia, Ole Miss, Bama, 1 conference loss. So there you go. It's going to come down to opponent win percentages. Head-to-head is out the window when you have 3 teams tied and they didn't all play each other. So again, Georgia, Ole Miss, Bama. Bama beat Georgia. Georgia beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss and Bama didn't play. So of those 3 teams, nobody is 2-0 against the other 2. And nobody is 0-2 against the other 2. So it goes to the next tiebreaker, which is opponent win percentage. You can take your time right now if you want and add up all 3 of those teams' opponents' winning percentage, but that's a waste of time because there's 2 more weeks to go. So every team's winning percentage is going to change every week that goes by because Florida and Tennessee are playing this week. Well, Georgia's played Florida and they've played Tennessee, so it's going to be a win and a loss there. You get what I'm saying. But anyway, that's the conference standings, and that is the Your Season Is Over video for week 12. Appreciate you moseying on by there, partner. Yeah, horns down. Texas fucking sucks, just like I told you. You're just another team. You're nothing special in the SEC. You're just not. I mean, you're the next team on the schedule. That's it. We beat you just like we beat the last team on the schedule, and just like we'll beat the next one. And the quicker the fans realize that, the better off they'll be, because you're making yourself look stupid on the internet, running around acting like you're something more than what you actually are. So take that advice. That's some free advice for you there. But there you go. Congratulations to everybody that won. Such a shame to those teams that lost, especially these losers here. But we do this every Sunday. We'll do it again next Sunday. I do appreciate you watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up if you hadn't already. Have yourself a good morning, and I'll talk to you again real soon, there, bud.